Test, test. All right. How are we doing this afternoon? Thank you. I like that. Easy audience. Thank you all again so much for being here. I see actually a surprising number of new faces today, which is great. So for some first-time sessions, then of course a lot of very friendly and familiar faces who have been here for most, if not all, of our previous 4 sessions. Just to level set, this is session 5 of our 6 weeks, our 6-week nonprofit workshop series we've been having here on Tuesdays, 3 to 5 at the main library. We have one more session next week, same time, same place. We've been really grateful for the response, really grateful for you all's participation here. Quick housekeeping, exits that way, bathrooms right out the back and to your right, elevator and steps to your left, snacks and water over there back left. Feel free to discreetly get up and grab something if you need to throughout. Today's session is going to be a little bit different. It's been clear both in the feedback from on the registration form, but also in the kind of questions that were emerging throughout our previous 4 sessions, that fundraising and grant writing was something that a lot of folks were really interested in. Those are obviously huge topics that you could put on a 6-part series about and still not touch on everything. But we did want to bring in some experts with a wide variety of background and expertise around fundraising, philanthropy, grant writing, and grant making to share some of their perspective with you all. And as I was telling them in recent days as we were putting this together, you all had some great questions throughout our sessions, and so my expectation is that you all will have plenty of questions to fill a full hour with them this afternoon. I've got a couple that I can use and more if we need them, but we really want to use as much of the time as possible to give you all a chance to ask them questions and to take this kind of dialogue and conversation wherever you would like. So we'll spend about an hour on that. We'll wrap the panel about 4:15, give you a quick stretch break, bathroom break, and then reconvene. Valerie, who's been leading us for the last 4 sessions, will touch on 2 or 3 of the other topics we advertised with this session. And then as time allows, Charlie will pull up on the screen, among other things, probably the Foundation Center portal. It's a really unique, powerful fundraising resource and tool that anyone can access for free here at the main library. It's very expensive if you want to purchase it on your own for your own organization, so it's a really great free resource. And we'll pull that up so you kind of get a glimpse of that if time allows. So before we pivot up here, any questions about those housekeeping items? We're good? Okay. We have got 4 really wonderful, talented people. I think with some very unique perspectives on this subject. I'm really glad and really grateful that you all were able to be here today. Some of you on very short notice, so I'm very, very grateful. We'll start by having all 4 of them introduce themselves, the organization they're with, anything else you want to share about your background sort of relevant to today's conversation and topic, and then I'll kick us off with an introductory question, and we'll see where you all want to take it from there. So if that mic is working, we'll start here with my friend Scott from the Community Foundation.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for coming out. I think your time that you're investing in this is a really great reflection of the passion that you have for the community and your interest in seeing a vibrant community for all of us. And so I'm grateful to share this time with you this afternoon. And grateful to Dominic and his team for the invitation. You've got a really great team of public servants at City Hall who wake up and go to bed every day thinking about the community that we all live in. And so I'm grateful to Dominic and his team for the invitation. My name is Scott Andrews Weckerly. I'm a Senior Program Officer for Economic Prosperity at the Community Foundation. The Community Foundation is a large, locally based philanthropic body, so it's a grant maker. And also a capacity builder. When I came to the Community Foundation about 5 years ago, it was to run our capacity building programming for nonprofits. And to that work, I bring just about a decade's worth of experience as a social worker, as an MSW social worker, doing housing programming here in Richmond and also in New York City. So a little bit of direct service experience and then program management. And then I came to this side of the equation. And so you should know that I have been in your shoes and that to that relationship, I always bring a healthy dose of empathy for people who are trying to advance their programs. And so I'm glad to be with you today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope y'all are well. My name is Cynthia Coleman. I am the Senior Director of Philanthropy at YWCA Richmond, just right here down the street on Fifth Street. We provide direct services to survivors of domestic and sexual assault. We also run 5 child care centers, all located within the city of Richmond, serving sweet little people from 2 months to 5 years old. I'm going to put a plug in for those who are looking for childcare that we do have some openings. We have sliding scale payments. There are folks who pay absolutely nothing to be a part of the Sprout School. There are folks who are also full pay. Our goal is to provide deeply affordable, high quality childcare to those folks in the city of Richmond and outside of the city of Richmond. In my role at YWCA Richmond, I am responsible for bringing in all the funding for us to do the work that we do. It is demanding and challenging, and I love it. At the end of the day, to be able to watch the people that I work with and help support do the wonderful things to help people, women and families, sometimes at the worst time in their lives, and then to make sure that all children, I say again, all children in the city of Richmond and the Richmond region have a level playing field as they begin school. And so I have been on my fundraising journey probably for at least over a decade. Prior to that, I was in audit and compliance at Altria. I am a lawyer by training, but I am the biggest non-lawyer you've ever met in your life. I love working with and supporting people. And so my heart is in supporting people and meeting them where they need. I too, like Scott, have been on both sides. I manage the folks who write grants, but then I've also worked for a number of years at United Way, where we also review grants. And so I ran that program. So I can also give you a little bit perspective from both sides, and look forward to interacting with everyone today. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Nicole Jones. I guess I need to say this. I am also City Council 9th District Representative, but I'm here today in my executive role as the Deputy Director of Art 180. And that is a creative youth development organization that supports young people with art and activism and how to use the arts as a tool to further their social skills and be a bridge for industry jobs and things like that. I came into Art 180 as a parent, and I spent a lot of time there volunteering. And when my predecessor left, they asked me, did I want to come on? And they wanted me to come on as their donor relations director. I'm like, oh, it's fancy, AKA fundraising. And so I've been in this role coming up on 7 years. And I like to use my experience as a parent, as a community member, as someone who has been both on the receiving end of funds in way of scholarship for kids when you don't really have it. That's fundraising, right? But then also being part of the team that leads the strategy on what we need to do the work that we do. So I come to this work with not necessarily a fundraising background. I like to always say, did it choose you or did you choose it? And at the time, I literally, I chose it because it's part of the work that I'm supposed to do. So fundraising is not easy. It requires a lot, and hopefully we'll be able to get into the real of fundraising today. And then, I'm excited to, kind of be a part of this conversation.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again, everyone. I'm also very excited to be here. My name is Amy Bradshaw, and I am a grant writer, grants manager with a grant writing consulting business here in Richmond called Grant Flow. And we have grown from a very small kind of neighborhood consulting business into a full-fledged client services company. We also have a software that we have developed to help nonprofit grant writers track and manage their grant application process. We provide writing support. We work with nonprofit leaders, development staff to basically help with every step of the grant writing process, from strategizing to submitting applications to reporting on outcomes, so on and so forth. And we're very specific to the grant writing piece. So I know one thing that we'll, I'm sure, talk a lot about is relationships and cultivation and building relationships with donors. And, you know, we really step back and make sure that the folks who are doing the work and the organizations who really are the experts are doing that, and we're supporting them a little bit farther removed, but with an area that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, and has a lot of very serious deadlines. So I came into grant writing actually through a social work background, and now have been working with grants in one way or the other for almost 15 years, both externally from organizations and as an in-house grant writer in nonprofits and in some public agencies. So I'm excited to hear more about what you all are up to and your ideas and talk about the grant side of it.
Thank you for so much. And I hope you can tell just in that quick introduction that we're thoughtful in picking folks who I think bring very unique perspectives. Each of them sort of wearing multiple hats or having sort of different personal experiences and professional experiences in this space that I think is really valuable to this conversation. We've got folks who represent organizations that don't exist yet and they're just sort of ideas. We've got folks who are in the process of trying to establish them, folks who have just established them, and then folks who've been around for a while but are trying to figure out, you know, how to scale up or how to build capacity and strengthen parts of their operations, particularly fundraising. And I think you all offer a lot to that conversation. So thank you for being here. And with that in mind, I think we'll start with everyone answering this kind of same foundational question and then see where you all want to go with it. But I'd like each of you all able to start in reverse with the mic. And since I won't need it for questions, I'll pass this other one around so we can share. But what would you all say is the most important thing for particularly a new or emerging organization to either think about or have in place to position themselves well for fundraising success?
Well, starting from the grants perspective, really understanding and having a really clear mission and plan for what your goals are, as well as having thought through how you're going to show that you're reaching those goals. When you get into writing grants and applying for funds through the grant making side or grant writing side of fundraising, you've got to be able to answer a lot of different questions. And the core of that is who you are and what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and who is it going to impact. And then, you know, how many people, how many houses, how many, whatever it is you're working towards, will you be able to do? And the other piece that we really, really highlight is grants are one piece of a puzzle. So I think there's often the feeling that you can go out and get a grant and that'll get you started. But really, when you're looking at grants, you're looking at part of a full fundraising strategy that goes hand in hand with the work that everyone up here does to not only build your community, build your networks, but also really help you understand how you're communicating what you do and how you do it. And it's not something that grants can do alone. So we are always talking with folks, particularly as they're getting started about the value of a diverse fundraising strategy and just different approaches and different aspects to how you're going to fundraise, so all your eggs are not in one basket.
So I'm probably gonna come a little different. I was gonna say a little bit about the mission, but I also will add to that. One is the question, are you going to be the fundraiser? Because if you're new and you're just starting, you're not gonna have a team. And so if you are the fundraiser, then you also need to first understand that the population of fundraisers are not your typical Black and brown people. Like, let's just start there and be real. Because that is where the relationships come in, and you have to ask yourself, do you have those relationships? How are you going to build those relationships? How are you going to maintain and sustain those relationships? And so if you are the fundraiser, kind of equipping yourself with the tools to know that fundraising is both an art and a science, but it's also a mental and emotional space that you have to occupy to go out and ask for money. So a lot of times when we are, I'm a part of an organization where I get to come in and be a part of a team that does this work. But as a solopreneur, right, if I'm doing this thing and I don't even have a wealthy connection or someone that I know that can help support, you often have to rely on grants. So we have to make sure that you are equipping, like I said, yourself, not with tools, because tools means it's broken, but like toys, so that you can play in this algorithm of fundraising, because it's a real serious game. And a lot of folks are successful, a lot of folks get burnt out. A lot of fundraisers, myself was one that you get burnt out. So that's a thing that you also have to know, that fundraising requires a lot of burnout, because you get frustrated, you're not getting, the awards, you're not winning. So being able to really think about how do you, as you approach this, know part of that strategy. Do I want to go grants? Do I want to go individual? Do I want to go foundation? Do I want to, whatever level? So, and then just surrounding yourself, with a group of people that are also doing what you're doing, because you need to be able to rely on, because sometimes you can partner on grants and literally be successful in that way. So I think, a couple of things for me is just like being mindful of your approach, understanding fundraising, because it's not often clear. And if you know this industry, it's an industry that is a high turnover. You see most fundraisers stay in a job maybe 1 to 3 years. And so think of yourself as someone that is out here, applying and looking to raise funds. How long are you going to actually be able to do that? So.
All right, now I have to think of something different, because Amy said have a business plan. That was my first thought. Nicole said, get out there and talk to people and network. That was my second thought. So my third thought is this: do not be afraid to ask for help, because it is out there. Do not think that you have to go through this process alone. The fact that you're here speaks to that, but there are a lot of people who say, well, I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and I've got to do this. There are a number of people out there, as you're networking, talking to people that you know who are doing this similar work, who will be willing to share a grant application with you, who will be willing to share their information with you, who will be willing to share their expertise with you. It's not that fundraising and grant writing are new all the time. They really pretty much remain the same. And so, as Nicole was saying, you have to find where you fit into this particular algorithm. And so that also means don't go into this half-hearted, because it can cause a lot of burnout. But you've got to have your heart in this work. This is, for us doing this work for nonprofits, it's heart work. It's not the thing that we're looking to be rich. It's the thing that we're trying to enrich our communities and to make people better. And for many of us, there are things that we have been through that we think we can help other people through, so they don't make the same types of mistakes. And we want people to start out better than some of us did. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Yes, have a solid business plan. Understand what you are asking for and who you are going to be impacting. Do not spread yourself so thin that you're like, I'm going to write 10 grants and then I'm going to talk to 20 donors, when you know you can't do that. Be very strategic in your approach and look at those grants. You're going to have to conduct what is called a risk assessment in your head, and it's not as complicated as it sounds. Look at the grant and look at the grant outcomes. Is this the grant that I'm most likely to get based on what I want to do, or do I have a better chance at this grant over here? So you have to be very thoughtful and strategic in your approach to the work that you do. So don't just go spreading yourself everywhere and applying for every grant that comes out, because you will become burnt out and extremely frustrated. So that's my start. If I think of anything else, I hope I have left something for you to talk about.
I hope so too. Echoing everything that these three experts have said, from making sure that your grant support is one part of a broad fundraising strategy that includes a foundation of individual sustaining donors. So think about that as sort of the base level of the pyramid, supplemented by your foundation grants or your philanthropic grants. I think it's so important. And I think to access either of those, be it individual giving or foundation giving, you can't confuse the passion that you have for your cause and the work that you're doing as a substitute for your business plan. Because the truth of the matter is that running a nonprofit is running a business. It's a tax exempt business, but it is a business nonetheless. And so that involves really fine and discriminating strategy. It is being clear about what outcomes you're seeking to see from your work's intervention and how realistic those are. It is building a case for your organization when you're meeting with individual donors or with foundations. And it's being strategic about the things that are going to return the most on your investment of time. And in all of that, I think that there should be sort of a base level of comfort knowing that you're going to, at least at first, hear far more no's than you're going to hear yeses. And I can't tell you the number of times, especially in a program that I was running here in town, where the self-evidence to me of the value of the work that was clear to me should have been clear to foundations and other donors. And I can't tell you the number of times that I tossed and turned at night, wondering why it is that people couldn't see the value of the work as I saw it. And that's going to happen. You're going to hear far more no's than you hear yeses. But if you put your ducks in a row, if you reach out to your networks, if you say to other nonprofits who are working in similar spaces as you, like, how did you get from where I am to where you are? What are some ways that we could partner together so that I can piggyback on the work and really make impact together that is more than just the sum of our parts? The other resource that I'll kind of point you to, you're in this experience together. Our community foundation, a separate team from mine within our building, offers free technical assistance to nonprofits. And I'll leave with Dominic the contact information for that colleague of ours. But that is free technical assistance. And what that involves is being matched up with a consultant from a consultancy up in Charlottesville, the Center for Nonprofit Excellence. They'll spend some time with you sort of diagnosing and intervening on particular issues that your nonprofit is having. And that is sort of an in-kind support that you can use to accelerate your work as you're putting together the other parts of your business to start developing more revenue through individual donors and foundations.
I have like 12 more questions that I want to ask now after that, but I promised that we'd start by opening it up. So we will open up for questions. Let's see a hand here, and then we'll see where we go with it. Yes, sir.
How you doing? James Adams, Twin Handyman Services. What I want to know is that, are there any resources or companies that will be able to help nurture or take upon a mentorship program for a nonprofit to go, like for me, be the first time, because Habitat already took my job that I wanted, or my nonprofit pathway. So I know I got to revamp my business plan to adjust so that somebody can use my service.
Oh, okay, go ahead. No. I was just going to make sure everybody, make sure that I heard the question right. Also, I think a key part you're asking is, are there resources out there to kind of help mentor or support folks sort of along the journey, like you? Yeah. Go for it.
And is that journey fundraising? Do you mean as from a fundraising perspective?
From being a nonprofit to, sometimes people will start nonprofit first. Even though you still got to get the funds to get it.
Yeah. Well, I would say yes, but it has to be the fit for you. So like when I came on as a fundraiser, there's a notion of donor-centric fundraising. Donor-centric fundraising is basically where you are the fundraiser and you pretty much are chasing the dollar, you're chasing the donor, you're trying to get them to invest. Me being who I am, that didn't work for my style of fundraising. So even when you're thinking about mentoring and getting people to support you, always stay true to you. Don't allow the chase to then cause you to take on or be a part of that shifts your business, that shifts your ideology of like why you doing your why. And be okay with disrupting the system, like seriously, because the reality of it is that philanthropy, right? And this is no shade, but it's not set up for Black businesses or startups. And so we have to understand that when we're going in, we can partner and we should, but we should not have to give up who we are to get your money. So when you think about mentorship and working with people, ensure that it's people that see your vision, that doesn't require you to be exploited and doesn't require you to have to go a particular way just to get what you need. Because based on 9 times out of 10 why you started, the need is there. It is a part of community growth and development. And so those resources should be helping add value to you versus extracting. That's not.
Just a real quick follow-up to that. You don't necessarily have to change or revamp anything. Because quite often there's enough work out here and some of these bigger nonprofits aren't hitting everything that's being done. At YWCA Richmond, we are not servicing every single domestic violence survivor, every sexual assault survivor. So that doesn't mean necessarily because there are other big nonprofits that you need to change the work that you're doing. As Nicole was saying, look for a larger partner, someone who honestly wants to work with you and help you. I was sharing with someone about the work we do at YWCA Richmond. Part of what we do, our mission is very simply to eliminate racism and empower women, is to bring in other smaller nonprofits that aren't seen and heard. That's part of the work that we want to do because we know we can't do it all. And so part of you in finding this mentor that you are talking about is finding someone who's doing the similar work, who is willing to say, yes, this is what we're doing, and this is how you can come into it. Nicole is absolutely right. Don't let it be that they pull everything out of you. The idea is that they're supposed to be sharing with you and helping you along because there's enough out there. And Nicole is also right. There aren't a lot of us doing this particular work. I can name half the people in Richmond. I know them all. And so you have to be brave. And you have to be resilient and you have to be prepared for the no, as he was saying earlier, but don't change what you're doing if that's your hard work, because I'm sure there's plenty of work still out there that they're not covering in pathways in some of the other places. But look out for that mentor who's willing to pull you in and can share that information.
Well, I know Nicole and maybe also you, Cynthia, at one point there was a specific cohort of Black fundraisers, right? I don't know where if that still exists or is happening in some shape.
Well, is he talking about African American? Because we also had one under IFF, which was under AFP.
Okay.
And we created, well, myself and Nadia Gouret created an inclusive fundraising fellowship. We had 4 cohorts of that came through that supported fundraisers on their journey to working in fundraiser spaces. You know, some were working on their own businesses, but it was also a lot of like what Cynthia is saying, the part of fundraising that they don't talk about, right? The part that allows you to be true to who you are, to, you know, connect from a community-centered mindset. So moving away from donor-centric. Donor-centric is not bad, right? It's just much like other things in the world of like racism and all that. It's a way of doing things that has gotten us away from situations like this where folks come and need it and they don't help. But yeah, so it really helps to balance the work of a fundraiser of like, here's who you are, understanding that community-centered mindset and really taking that to build your case to be able to like thrive in fundraising.
Thank you. Next question. While you all think of questions, I'll pause. This is wait 8 seconds, I was told. That's the science, right? 8 seconds to give people a chance. I move too fast sometimes.
I just wanted to see if the gentleman on the end, if you can repeat, you were talking about some free or in-kind resources. You're talking a little fast, so I was trying to type it and all that good stuff.
You're trying to keep up with how fast I talk.
I was gonna say that maybe the first time in my life. Sure, so through the Community Foundation, and it looks like you may be on the website now, so that's cfrichmond.org. There is some free technical assistance available for nonprofits through our community engagement team. If you go up in the top, so the woman's name is gonna be Megan Robertson, MEGYN, Megan Robertson. And her email address is mrobertson, Robertson, so Megan Robertson at cfrichmond.org. And what you can do is you can send her an email and you can tell her that you're participating in this cohort, that I mentioned it in this session today. And then she'll get the ball rolling on the referral to the Center for Nonprofit Excellence. But it's all free. It's that relationship with CNE is subsidized, and so that's one avenue of receiving support through the foundation. My name is Scott. You're welcome. And you can, I'll also stick around for a few minutes during the break. So if you've got one-on-one questions you want to ask me, I'm happy to stick around.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joshua Young. I just wanted to acknowledge something that you said about, like, when you're applying for the things and being ready for the no. That's definitely something that happens. But also being ready for the yes is something that a lot of people aren't ready for. So I think the first time that I got a grant, I didn't expect to get it, and so I didn't have a bank account. Right, so it was like, okay, let me try to find a bank and make a bank account, and they want all this documentation. Like, it was a lot, and so it set me back a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 weeks where I could have had money earlier. And so being ready for things is also a part of it, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'll sort of put Amy on the spot here. And I know that Grant Flow and others sort of like to help nonprofits become grant ready. And what that means is, and this is, you don't need to hire somebody to do that necessarily.
That's 100% true. No
Grant Flow is amazing, and truly, being sort of grant ready means having sort of a dossier for your organization that has your mission, vision, and values, that has your case for support, that has the outcomes that you've either achieved already or that you could reasonably expect to achieve with grant support. It's sort of plug and play, so that as you find those funding opportunities that align with your mission, vision, and values, that you can pursue those confidently and without sacrificing kind of the core of your being. And so I think you raise an excellent point that there is real, that the investment that somebody makes on behalf of becoming grant ready is one that pays dividends when those yeses start to roll in.
I think that, I don't know that I actually could have said that better. But I think really what we talk a lot about with folks is the grant and the funds that they get, yes, is really an investment in their business, right? So it is a nonprofit, but a nonprofit is a business. And so when you've got folks who are funders who are working with monies all the time and moving around and choosing how best they feel they can make an impact with their funding, they want to understand from you why you're the one they should give that money to. And a lot of that is staying true to who you are, right? So we talk a lot about mission drift and moving away from your mission. And it's very easy to do when you are looking at grants as your tool, because you think, well, I can answer that question, or, oh, this is similar to what we do. We could totally expand to meet what this funder really focuses on. But it is so important to go back and say, does this connect to who we are? Does this connect to our mission? And then what is the reality of our day-to-day ability to do this work? If there is a yes, I really like thinking about the being prepared for a yes. And, it's grants are one of those things where they can build up and build up and build up in your mind to think that it's more than really just another way to share who you are. It's, yes, you're answering questions, you're working with, specific amounts of space, you're understanding who a funder is and what their interests are and why they fund the way they fund so that you can see if your work fits with their priorities. But it's also being willing to say our work does not fit with these priorities. So we're not going to spend our time doing that. And sometimes that's apparent from a funder's website. A lot of corporations do a lot of funding and they have very clear priorities. They have very clear metrics that they have to report back to levels and levels of levels within their corporate structure. And you may not fit in with that. It may be a conversation that you are a fit, but not quite. And through the conversations with those funders, you learn more about that. It's the feel, it might be clearly communicated, but I do think there's always going to be those folks, if you keep looking, that do align with the work you're trying to do. And I appreciate Nicole's point as far as looking at donor centric, because a lot of writing grants is writing to the donor, right? So it's an interesting mix of writing to the donor, but what we are always very much paying attention to when we're working with a nonprofit is, are we writing to the donor or are we truly representing what the organization does? And a lot of the advice and conversations we have with nonprofits is to say, hey, we really don't think you're a fit for this grant because it's over here and you're over here. Give us a little bit longer to find you some more things that are over here. And that's going to work out better in the long run.
Such a great point. Thank you for making that. I would say, I think the being ready for a yes is something that sticks with you no matter how advanced or big your organization is. It just sort of evolves and changes. I mean, I think about that at the city when we're talking about applying for a $2 million federal grant. It's like, this is really cool, but if we get this, can we deliver on this? Are we going to be ready? We can't really invest in preparing for that project unless we have the money to do it. Or at an organization of, the budget of $1 million, what if somebody called me up tomorrow and said, hey, I've got $50,000, how many more people can you serve with this $50,000? What do you need right now? Do I have that answer at the ready? Question back here, yes.
So in terms of being grant ready, what tools or, as you said, toys and processes do you recommend using in the application process? Because applying time after time after time can be time consuming. So how do you can't always automate it, but how do you shrink down your investment in time?
So we actually, I'm excited that you are going to spend some time looking at Foundation Directory online. That's actually a tool we use a lot. And it is great to have it here as a free resource. The other thing that we really look at is how we don't want to say the same thing in 10 different ways, right? There's no reason to overcomplicate how we talk about who we are and what we do. We don't have to say our mission a little bit differently over here than we say it over here. We can say this is our mission and we're going to say it 100 times, and we're going to say it 100 more times, and we can use that same language again, right? So plug and play is a term we will use a lot as far as saying, okay, what is it that we can standardize? Our mission, our vision, how we work, our program descriptions. If we're looking at a year-long budget, that year-long budget is our budget for a whole year. We don't have to have a new budget every single time we submit a new grant. We have to go through and review the grant questions. We review our language that we have. We enhance it, we add to it, we shift it as we need to. But if we can, at the beginning, develop a core set of responses, really, like boilerplate responses of how we answer these questions, what you will find is you're getting variations of the same question in grants again and again and again, particularly if you're looking at like corporate foundations, private foundations. Federal grants are kind of their whole own difficult, challenging. I don't recommend doing them right out of the gate at all. I mean, sometimes we don't recommend doing them for nonprofits that have been around for decades. It's the onus on reporting and the expectation is very, very high and very, very time consuming. But what we always recommend is having language available that clearly communicates what you do. And then you can really use that again and again. We also excuse me, we also always keep the typical documents that grant funders want to see together. So they want to see a Form 990. They want to see a financial report. If you're at a point where you're having an audit, they may want to see an audit, but the basic organizational information, like the organizational structure, information that they would want to see, we have it together. We know we've got it when we need it, right? So that's usually the first step is we'll say, you know, these are the 5 items that a funder will typically say, answer all these questions about who you are and what you do, and then attach these 5 documents. And if you don't have these 5 documents, we're not really going to read the rest of it, right? So we really say, make sure you've got all your items in place. And a lot of that comes from building your business plan and putting together the structural pieces to the organization and how it's going to run.
Suppose, you got that grant from that organization. And the next year, you apply almost the same questions that you're saying.
That's a great question.
Then you get a turn down.
So this is speaking purely as a grant writer and someone who's written grants for many different organizations, types of programs over the years. At a certain point, you have no control over what a funder is going to do, right? So I really focus when I'm writing on saying, do I feel like this is a quality proposal? Am I proud of it? Do I feel like it truly represents the work that is being done? And then I have to kind of step back and say, I recognize and understand that a funder may not be interested in investing in this work right now. And that's where it goes back to having other resources to tap into, maybe one of your individual donors that you've developed a relationship with, you can reach out to because you know that they have that belief in the work you do. Or finding other grant opportunities that you can start applying to. But there's often shifts that are happening that as the writer or the fundraiser, you're not going to see, right?
I'll also add to that though, that is not always made clear that there are often wait out periods and they don't tell you that. And so you can apply for a grant, get it, but you may have a wait out that is, or they may have a wait out period that goes, you get a grant every 2 years. And so you have to really also pay attention to the cycle of the funders that you do have and how they award. So if they award you every year and then you don't get something, then that's probably something that's happening up in there. But if they award you like every other year, or they award you based on certain metrics, it's also a wait out period that a lot of times you're like, what's happening? But if you've been writing and receiving, you know, been a recipient, you can have those. So when you don't get it, you can do a debrief and say, hey, what happened this round? They may tell you it's a wait out. They may say instances with your application or things that may have contributed to it. But that is a key thing that I had to learn, that you literally have to understand. So then you also can plan your budget around those wait outs. Because if you apply and you don't know, and then you accounting on that funding in your budget, then you're kind of, you know, you jammed up if you don't have another resource. So really understanding when you're working with funders, and maybe Scott can speak a little bit more to that, that there is wait out periods in certain funded cycles, and we are often aware of that.
Yeah, some organizations, some foundations have a 3-year blackout period.
Sometimes, yes, particularly capital campaigns. Something I wanted to just build upon what Amy and Nicole are sharing. This is where I think Amy was making sure when you're talking about your outcomes and the results of when you are receiving this grant are a big deal. And so what you initially applied for, they're like, yes, this organization is great. They're doing these great things. They need to see that in your report. They need to hear that you are matching, that 10% of people are going to be impacted and their lives are going to be better. 50% of people are going to report that my organization made a difference in their lives. And so when you're looking at re-upping for funding, you have to remember, you have to tell a story in terms of the impact that your grant made. And it might be sharing a story, but it's also making sure that when you shared with them what outcomes you expected to meet, you have to let them know that you met those outcomes. If you didn't, you have to have a good reason why something did happen. something happened, a pandemic, all kinds of things can change. But funders are fickle, y'all. I've been on both sides. Funders can be funny. And so it may go from one year to the other where they shift just a bit. Their board president may be different and that will come up. So learn not to take some of those those things personally. So when we say be prepared for the no, it hurts, but you have to learn not to take things personally because there's so much outside of your control. But also remember, when you're telling them what you're going to do to get those funds, you have to tell them that you did it and show how much impact you made with your work. And so I know Scott has some other things he wanted to share.
Now we have to hear from the funny funder.
The fickle funny. Right.
So.
Couple other F words mixed in there too. What I'll say about that, echoing my colleagues here, is that there is a whole lot that goes into a funding decision that's beyond your control, certainly beyond staff's control. You know, I think the best you can do, as what Andy has said, is look back over your application and say, is this the clearest, best reflection of my organization's work? Is it true to me? Is it something that I would be proud of in any case, whether I'm funded or not, and sort of let that be that. But what I would say too, and I'll say this especially about the local funders here, and I won't speak for national funders necessarily, but I can say pretty confidently about the local funders here. The staff at all of our foundations are really committed to shooting you straight.
Yes.
All throughout the process. And so that's when you're exploring a relationship with us, when you've sort of made yourself formally known to us, when you've applied for something, when we've given a decision, positively or negatively. The important thing to remember is it's a relationship, like any other relationship. And yeah, for sure, call. And what I'll say too, and I hope that you believe me when I say this, is that notwithstanding the huge power imbalance that exists for so many different reasons between somebody who's seeking grant support and somebody who has that grant support to give, I concede that. But beyond that, it is a relationship between people. And so, you know, reach out to program officers, reach out to foundation staff. It's a really small town. And if your work or your organization isn't quite the right fit for us, and you're doing great things, we're always happy to say to fellow foundations, hey, take a look at this, or hey, would you look at this application? It's a partnership, and at a very basic level, a foundation doesn't look good unless the nonprofits in their arena are doing great work. And so lean on that relationship.
Peace, how y'all doing? My name is Zenobia Bay. I just want to kind of speak on, and I appreciate everything you all are saying. I wish I'd have known this in 2010. But I just want to kind of speak on just being a grassroots organization for 15 years. And one of the things I can definitely say, and some of y'all have said it, is really just educating yourself on the process, knowing the work that you're doing, but also knowing what verbiage is in that scope of work for the grant that you're applying. Community 50/50 been around since 2009, and we didn't get our first grant until 2021. And half of that, you know, I was, as a CEO, was in my feelings about it, but at the same time, I realized I was gaining experience. I was building the relationships that they all are talking about with the different community partners, got a chance to kind of partner with different organizations, see who was the best aligned. So now when we are applying for these grants, and we're actually in the process right now of everything they're saying with program planning and making sure things are in the right process. And so even in that stage of it, I've learned as a CEO, the importance of building a team, because I don't know all the different verbiage and the different things that has to go on that program plan. I'm learning now, but I have the vision. I know what that program is supposed to look like. So now if I can communicate to this person on my team, this person that's actually part of writing the grant, the other person that may be a collaborative partner, we can get that verbiage together, we can get that program plan together, we can submit it, and now we can get approved, right? And so now, what do we do when that grant isn't approved yet and we still have to get funded? So now we become creative to create our own fundraising programs, which leads me to right now, we have these nice community 50/50 goodies, right? That we are selling for $55, but if you don't have $55, you can take $5 and enter a raffle that will be drawn on September the 28th, and you can get one of these nice good hoodies with their hoodie sleeves. Thank you for clapping, little kid. You don't even know why you clapping, but you clapping. So again, being like they said, being creative about your fundraising tactics, that's ours. Community 50/50 is compressed of a lot of artists, people that do creative expression, and people that do a lot of fashion. So one of the things we did was took fashion through fundraising and made that a grassroots fundraising for sustainability until those fundraising grants, until those grants come in. So everything they're saying, I agree. I think we should continue to network, get information, get educated, and don't be afraid to ask people that standing on the stages questions. They're human, they have blood in their body, they have breath going through their body just like we do. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people, not just in Richmond, but business owners, where you see certain people in certain lights and you're scared to make that relationship and build. And that's one of the ways that Community 50/50 has sustained and where we are right now, because we're not afraid to go to Mayor Stoney or somebody that's sitting right there and build that relationship so now they know who we are. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you for that real world example, hands-on example there, fundraising strategies. We had a question up here, then I'll come to you, Leon.
Hi. Transparent moment. So I received a grant, but I was told to apply for that. I was called, someone said, hey, well, this has happened twice. Someone said, hey, I need somebody who has this expertise in this program, send them to me. Someone else calls me, I'm in for it. And I call the person and then I get the grant. Is that a normal practice? I ask that because before I was in a position to get these calls, I was applying like everybody else and getting a bunch of no's. So what's like, yeah.
I'm gonna swap out mics real quick, because you got a red light on here, so we get some fresh batteries in it.
So can you help me understand when you say you were called, you said you were called to apply for a grant. Was this to go on a grant with somebody or like your organization to apply for the funds from a funder or a friend? Said no. Oh, well, that's a come up now, this way, but yeah. Yeah, so yeah, so I'll say this, and Scott, please don't kill me. You either, but a lot of it in these funder roles, they also have goals and initiatives that they have to make. And while they may have not been checking for you in that moment, it was probably because they were already funding organizations that were doing what they needed to do. And because fundraising is not just being kind of under a microscope on, as a fundraiser, it's also a lot of pressure on funders, right? That they have not been culturally, sensitive or relevant to organizations. They don't have the DEI, piece in their funding practice that is spreading the wealth. And so a lot of times they will say, hey, do you know someone that could, or is doing, and they will reach out and say, apply for this. And I think that instance, when that happens, it's also then for you to say, why now? Or also be be true to you in saying, if it don't feel right for you, don't do it. But then also kind of becoming a champion to ensure that when that door opens, that it stays open and you bring 10 more people with you. Because now you in, and so because you're in, now you got 10 other people that you can say, and by the way, I have some other people that could potentially benefit from this. And you now are putting them on the spot to really speak to their mission, their initiatives. Like it reverses the table and the roles. And the fundraising relationship is a dance, but it can be a great one because you all are we are the work, right? We're doing the work. So you then get to that opens up a area for you to kind of like create space for your work to be seen and built upon, but then also open it up for other people.
I think sort of part of your question is that unique or unusual? And I think sort of the short answer is no, for better or worse. Whether it's sort of a formal invitation only foundation that says you can only apply if we ask you to apply, which is kind of I think what you have, or whether it's very relational, which is informally we only are giving money to folks that we built a relationship with. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna put my most positive spin on this. Not all funders know everything that's going on in their communities. And so they're relying heavily on people that work for them. They're relying on their network. And so it's not also always necessarily nefarious what's going on. It just may be that they found the right person who knew you, who were the right person at the time. And so like Nicole was saying, then step into it and then take advantage of the opportunity to share more about other nonprofits in the community that they may not be familiar with. Or the practices, exactly. And you can be that bridge that helps that particular funder learn more about what's really going on in the community, particularly with some of the smaller nonprofits that are out there.
How you doing? My name is Leon, and the question I want to ask: we're trying to get funding or help and describe it, the nonprofit I want to do. Is it good to speak on self-respect? Like, did you understand what I'm saying? My thing is to help kids. I'm trying to start a nonprofit to help kids from 6 to 18. I now work in a nonprofit for y'all, and they help 18 and up. From my standpoint, the reason why I want to help kids, like I got avenues throughout growing up, it was rare. So I was always picked on. Somebody always had something to say until I got tired, started fighting, and get into trouble. A lot of things going on now is happening with the youth. So my thing is trying to help the youth. So when telling people, should I tell them my story and this is why I'm trying to start this, or should I just say it because of what's going on now and leave myself out of it?
So I'll just say for me, like, we discount lived experience and we look at what people have done and say that warrants, whatever. I think that your story is what's going to lead your nonprofit. It's the reason why you're doing what you do. And so, but I think, and they spoke to this as well, you might be like Zenobia said, the visionary, but then you might need a storyteller. So who is your chief storyteller? Who's the person that's telling? You might need someone to write the grants, or you might need that partnership to write the grants. But you as the founder and the visionary is what's actually going to take it off the ground. And then you have to think about, you can't do it all. You're the face, so your story is what's going to get people interested and even wanting to hear more. So don't discount or don't, feel like in order to advance, you need to not tell your story. The organization wouldn't exist without your story. And so I think we do discount lived experience. I came in as a donor relations. I had never fundraised in my life, but it was the lived experience because I was a parent and I could relate from a parent side to say, y'all ain't doing what y'all supposed to be doing, and the way that which it led to, a job. And then, later on, all that. So just continue to use your story to be the vision of where you're trying to go, and then partner, network, do all the things that you
story is the core of the nonprofit and the core of what you're doing in your mission, right? So especially when we're talking about the grant side, there's numbers involved. We're talking about the age range of the kids and all of these details. But the part that makes it compelling and meaningful and can build a connection with someone is why you're there. And if the reason you're there is your story, then sharing that story is a really wonderful way to connect with people who are going to have similar values in wanting to support what you do, right? So it's a way to build some of those relationships with funders who maybe are more aligned with the work you're doing versus trying to stretch to connect with funders that are less aligned. So when we write grants, we talk about the head and the heart and combining the head and the heart. So the heart is the story, the head is the demographics and who you're going to serve and how you're going to do it and all of the numbers that come along with that. How much is it going to cost? All of that stuff. They really go together, but if you don't have the heart, it doesn't speak in the same way.
We may have time for 2 more questions. We've got here, and then we've got time. We'll finish back up there.
Excuse me, I have a statement and a question. The statement, when this young lady was speaking, I took nonprofit certification classes at BCU, and I remember one of the instructors saying, your grant may be the best grant in the pack, but you may not get the grant because her neighbor and this particular instructor only do brick and mortar. And she was very clear, her neighbor received a very huge grant because 1, they knew each other, and 2, it was something that pulled on her heartstrings. So even if you have the best, so that's not unusual. It was just new to you, but that happens and relationships happen. So you can say, oh, that ain't cool, but it happens all the time. And then it becomes frustrating on the other end for people who are really grinding, trying to get grants. Because when I was listening to him say, yeah, we want to apply, the city of Richmond want to apply for this gazillion-dollar grant. We are doing the work. And so I'm a part of 2 organizations, a faith-based organization that's been in existence since Jesus was on the cross. The second one is fairly new, about 4 years old. And I get the building, the new one, but the old one, we have been doing this work for a long time. During COVID, we were feeding 1,500 families a week. The list goes on and on. But when you try to get this funding, and we have a nonprofit attached to it, so it's not faith-based, it's our nonprofit. And then you have, well, how do you get a piece of that pie? You know, we met with the city about trying to do mobile laundry and mobile washing, mobile laundry and mobile showers. I know the city is working on that for homelessness. The city can't help every homeless person. But there are some people out here who can. And so the question, it becomes frustrating because you know you have the people, you got enough volunteers, you know you need some money in order to do this work, but then you never rise to the top. So you have to partner with the bigger organizations like the Y, like the whoever, like American Heart or whoever, in order to just get a piece of the pie, and you do all of the reporting. You do all the work, you have to do the reports, the blah, 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 you tell the stories, and it still puts you right back in the same space. I finished.
Well, I'm gonna let Cynthia
real
speak to
quick.
that, and then I need to honor the time of the panelists. At least 1 or 2 of them I know had a harder stop at 4:15. But during the break, at least 1 or 2 have also offered to let you come and act them with additional questions.
Yes, absolutely. I just want to follow up on something Nicole said. This
Please
is
do.
where when you're making that partnership, that you make it really clear about the work that you're supposed to do and they're supposed to do. Because yes, YWCA Richmond, part of our goal is to get these smaller nonprofits, but we're not expecting them to do the reporting work because they don't have the back office to do it. We do. And so I think it's very important for all of you who are looking out for these partnerships and building these partnerships, but particularly with these much larger, longstanding organizations that have much larger advancement and development departments, is that you're very clear on who's doing the reporting and why. And it's It might be a tough conversation and it might be an easy conversation that I don't have this experience. I don't have these people. So am I gonna depend on you for handling the reporting for us? I can give you all the numbers that you want, but I'm gonna need you to put that in. And so this is about Nicole first saying, don't let them pull everything out of you and leave your smaller nonprofit with nothing. The fact that you're there and you're partnering says something about them needing you and you being there. You own that. And so you have some leverage, use it. But yeah, you don't need to be doing your reporting. Your partner needs to be doing that. We would never ask for that at YWCA Richmond, and they should. You have power, wield it.
That's the perfect quote to end on right there. I know we could have built it the whole 2 hours, but this has been really great. Let's give our panelists a huge round of applause. Thank you all so much. I know some of you need to jet, but feel free to grab them if they're open to it for the next 10 minutes. We'll take a quick 10-minute stretch break. There's still some water and snacks back there, and then we'll reconvene to finish our afternoon. Thank you all so much.